The architect who sealed the tomb. The final stone. The stone settles into place with a sound you have been waiting 20 years to hear. A deep, final sound. Not loud, almost gentle, like the earth itself exhaling after holding its breath for a very long time. You stand at the very top of the world, or so it feels, with the desert spread below you in every direction, like a sea of warm gold cooling slowly toward evening. The workers are already descending the long ramps and pathways below. You can hear their footsteps fading against the stone, their voices growing small and distant, swallowed gradually by the wide quiet of the desert air. But you do not move yet. You are not ready to leave this moment. Not quite yet. You place your hand flat against the stone. It is still warm from the day's sun, warm the way skin is warm, and you let your palm rest there as though you could feel, through the rock, all 20 years that brought you here. 20 years of calculation scratched onto papyrus by lamplight. 20 years of sleepless nights, wondering if the angles were true, if the chambers would hold their shape against the weight of centuries, if the long, dark corridors would align with the stars, the way the Pharaoh's priests demanded they must. And now, at last, it is done. The stone beneath your hand is warm and solid, and exactly where it is meant to be. It will not move again. Not this year, not in 100 years, not for as long as anyone can imagine. And so, for the first time in 20 years, you let your hand fall slowly to your side. You take one long, unhurried breath, and you feel something in your chest loosen just slightly, like a rope that has finally been allowed to go slack. There is nowhere you need to be. There is nothing left to check. For tonight, and perhaps for the first time in 2 decades, the only thing required of you is to simply stand here, on top of your life's work, and feel the evening arrive. The desert at sunset. The sun is lowering itself toward the horizon with great, unhurried dignity, as though it too has finished something today and is in no rush to leave. The sky above the desert is doing something extraordinary. It moves slowly through colors you do not quite have names for. First, a deep, burnished gold, then a warm amber that seems to come from somewhere inside the light itself, and finally, something between, rose and violet, that settles softly over the dunes, like a fine veil drawn across the land. You have watched 1,000 sunsets from this hill over 20 years. You watched them through fevers and through storms, through the long stretches when the work seemed endless, through nights you were too exhausted to lift your head and look. You have never once, in all that time, watched a sunset like this. You have never watched one finished. You lower yourself down onto the warm stone at the pyramid's base, feeling the day's heat still rising gently from beneath you, and you simply look. The desert at sunset. The sun is lowering itself toward the horizon with great, unhurried dignity, as though it, too, has finished something today and is in no rush to leave. The sky above the desert is doing something extraordinary. It moves slowly through colors you do not quite have names for. First, a deep, burnished gold, then a warm amber that seems to come from somewhere inside the light itself, and finally, something between rose and violet that settles softly over the dunes like a fine veil drawn across the land. You have watched 1,000 sunsets from this hill over 20 years. You watched them through fevers and through storms, through the long stretches when the work seemed endless, through nights you were too exhausted to lift your head and look. You have never once, in all that time, watched a sunset like this. You have never watched one finished. You lower yourself down onto the warm stone at the pyramid's base, feeling the day's heat still rising gently from beneath you, and you simply look. The desert below is enormous and almost perfectly still. There is no wind tonight, no sound except the faintest whisper of sand cooling and settling somewhere far below. A sound so quiet it might only exist in your imagination. The shadows of the dunes stretched long and blue across the valley floor, deepening by the minute, softening every edge they touch. Somewhere far away, a single bird calls out once and then falls silent, as if it too has decided the evening deserves to be heard without interruption. The sky deepens further. The gold fades into a rich, darkening blue, and the first star appears faint and silver, hanging directly above the apex of the tomb you have just sealed, as though it had been waiting there all along for permission to show itself. You watch it for a long moment and feel your shoulders drop, just slightly, the way they do when a weight you had stopped noticing you were carrying is finally set down. Memories on the path. You begin your descent as the last light turns the sand. Beneath your sandals, to soft copper, your feet find the familiar path without needing to be told where to go. The same path worn smooth by 20 years of daily climbing, by hundreds of workers moving up and down at dawn and dusk, by your own footsteps in every season and every kind of weather this land has offered you. You know every dip and rise of this trail. You could walk it blind. Tonight, walking it for what may be the last time, you let yourself go slowly. You let your mind wander backward, the way a river wanders when it finally reaches flat ground. You remember the first time you climbed this hill, 20 years younger, carrying a satchel of borrowed instruments and far more confidence than experience. You remember your old teacher most clearly by one small habit. He would pull a dry stalk of grass from the hillside and roll it slowly between his teeth while he studied your drawings, never speaking until he had worn it down to nothing. You used to watch that stalk of grass the way other students might watch a face, trying to read in its slow disappearance whether your work would pass. That evening, 20 years ago, he chewed through 3 stalks before he finally nodded and said the lines would do. For a beginning, you do not remember most of what he taught you that first night about angles and alignment. You remember the grass. You remember the long silence. You remember how much 4 quiet words meant to you afterward. You think of him sometimes, especially on evenings like this one. You wonder if he stood somewhere very much like this, on some other hill, watching some other tomb of his own finally finished. waiting the way you are waiting now for someone to tell him it was real. You remember years of small failures along this path too. A miscalculated angle that cost 3 months to correct. A chamber wall that cracked in the dry season and had to be rebuilt stone by stone. A winter when the river flooded higher than anyone expected. And the work stopped entirely for nearly a season. And you sat in your tent every night, certain the whole project would collapse around you. None of that matters tonight. The path remembers all of it, you think, even if no one else ever will. The stones remember. The hill remembers. That feels, somehow, like enough. You walk on, slow and unhurried, letting each memory rise and pass like a small wave, none of them urgent, none of them asking anything more of you than to be noticed once and then released. Smoke over the valley. The valley opens up gradually below you as you continue down the hillside. The way a hand opens when it finally decides to let something go. You can see the workers' camp spread along the valley floor. Small fires already lit here and there, glowing orange against the deepening blue of dusk. You can smell wood smoke drifting up the slope to meet you, mixed faintly with the smell of roasting grain and something sweeter, dates, perhaps, or honey cooking slowly over the coals. The sounds of the camp rise to meet you too, soft and scattered. Low voices carrying on the still evening air. The gentle clink of a tool being set down for the night. Someone laughing quietly at something you cannot hear. These are the ordinary sounds of people who have finished their work for the day and are finally, gratefully, allowing themselves to rest. You pause for a moment on the path, just above the first scattered tents, and let yourself take it all in. The fires, the smoke curling upward into the darkening sky. The small dark shapes of people moving slowly between. Their work for the night and their food. 20 years of evenings like this one. 20 years of watching this same camp settle into the same quiet rhythm. Fire after fire, season after season. Tonight, it feels different. Tonight, there is no tomorrow's measurement waiting in the back of your mind. No unfinished wall pulling at your attention even as you try to rest. Tonight, you can simply watch the smoke rise and feel, for once, entirely present in your own body, with nowhere else your mind needs to be. You breathe in deeply, filling your lungs with wood smoke and warm evening air. And you let the hill carry you the rest of the way down, your steps slow and easy on the worn stone path. The river's edge, instead of going straight to your tent, you find yourself drawn toward the water. A narrow channel of the Nile curls close to the edge of the camp here, shallow and slow moving, the kind of place where workers wash the day's dust from their hands and feet before the evening meal. You walk toward it now, unhurried, your sandals loosening with each step until you finally slip them off entirely and let your bare feet feel the cooling sand. The water, when you reach it, is dark and smooth, holding the last traces of violet light from the sky above. You sit on a flat stone at the river's edge and lower your feet into the shallows. The water is cool, almost shockingly so after the heat of the day. And you feel the tiredness in your legs answer it at once. A kind of quiet relief spreading upward from your ankles. You sit very still and listen. The river makes the smallest sounds here. A soft lapping against the reeds. A faint trickle where the current catches against a half-submerged stone. The occasional quiet splash of something small moving beneath the surface. A fish, perhaps, or nothing at all. You let these sounds fill your ears completely. The way water fills a basin, slow and even. You cup your hands and lift a small amount of river water, letting it run over your wrists, your forearms, the back of your neck. It is wonderfully cool. You do this again, slowly, without any particular purpose, beyond the simple pleasure of cool water against tired skin. After a long, hot day that has finally come to an end, a heron lifts from the reeds a little further downstream, its wings beating slow and heavy against the darkening air, and you watch it go until it disappears into the blue distance. The river continues exactly as it was, patient, unbothered, moving toward the sea the way it has moved. Every single day for longer than anyone can remember. Long before this tomb existed, and long after, it will have returned to sand. You sit at the water's edge a while longer, simply existing beside it, your feet cooling, your breathing slowing to match the river's own unhurried pace. Voices by the fire. You rise eventually, your feet damp and cool, and make your way back through the scattered tents toward the largest of the cooking fires, where a handful of familiar faces sit gathered in the low orange light. One of them looks up as you approach the old foreman, a man you have worked beside for nearly as many years as the tomb has taken to build. You always know him by his hands before you see his face. One knuckle on his left hand has been thick and slightly crooked for as long as you have known him, the old scar from a chisel that slipped in his first year on the work. He has a habit of rubbing that knuckle slowly with his thumb whenever he is thinking, and he is doing it now, watching you cross the firelight toward him. "It is done then," he says quietly, not really a question. "It is done," you answer, and the words feel strange in your mouth, as though you are testing whether they are true by speaking them aloud. He smiles, just slightly, still working his thumb over that old, scarred knuckle, and shifts over to make room for you by the fire. You sit. Someone hands you a cup of something warm without being asked, spiced, dark, faintly sweet, the kind of drink the cooks prepare on evenings when the work is hard. And tonight, apparently, on evenings when it finally ends, the conversation around the fire moves slowly, the way conversations do among people who are deeply tired, in a good way. Someone mentions the long winter 3 years ago when the flooding nearly stopped everything. Someone else laughs about a mistake made early in the project. A wall built slightly crooked and quietly corrected. Before anyone important noticed, you find yourself laughing too, low and easy, the kind of laughter that comes from the chest rather than the throat. No one asks you what comes next. No one asks what you will build now that this is finished. Tonight, by this fire, none of that seems to matter. There is only the warmth of the flames, the low murmur of familiar voices, the spiced drink slowly warming your hands, and the foreman's old scarred knuckle catching the firelight each time he lifts his cup. You stay until the flames burn low and the others drift off, one by one, with quiet farewells and tired smiles. When it is your turn to rise, the foreman reaches out and grips your shoulder once, briefly, and says nothing more. It is enough. Between two old friends who built something enormous together, and now, finally, get to rest. The architect's tent. Your tent stands a little apart from the others, as it always has, a little further up the slope, a little quieter, set just far enough from the camp's noise that you could always hear yourself think. Back when thinking was something you needed to do every night. You have spent more nights in this tent than in your own house in the city. It has been your true home for 20 years, this simple square of linen held up by 4 cedar poles, weathered now by 2 decades of desert sun and wind. You duck inside and stand for a moment in the familiar smell of cedar and lamp oil and old papyrus, a smell so deeply known to you that it feels less like a scent and more like a memory you can breathe in. Your drafting table sits at the center of the tent, exactly where it has always sat. Your sleeping mat lies rolled against one wall. Your oil lamp hangs from the central pole, unlit for now, waiting. Your drafting table is covered, as it has been for years, in drawings, plans, and calculations, and careful cross-sections of chambers that now exist not as ink on papyrus, but as stone, sealed deep within the hill you just descended, places that will outlast everything you have ever known or loved. You do not sit at the table tonight. Instead, you simply stand and look at it for a long while, letting yourself take in the full weight of what is spread across its surface. 20 years reduced to careful lines and numbers, all of it finished now, all of it no longer waiting for your attention. Then you turn away from it gently, the way you might turn away from something very bright after staring at it too long. You light the lamp with a small flame carried in from the fire outside, and its warm amber glow fills the tent. Soft and familiar. You sit down on your sleeping mat and remove your sandals, one at a time, setting them carefully beside the mat the way you have done every night for 20 years. The cool linen beneath your bare feet feels unexpectedly comforting. Tonight, simple, familiar, entirely enough. Bread and oil and lamplight. Someone has left food outside your tent while you sat by the fire. A small clay bowl of lentils, still faintly warm, a piece of soft flatbread, and a cup of date wine, dark and sweet. You bring it inside and settle cross-legged on your mat, the bowl warm against your palms, the lamp burning low and steady beside you. You eat slowly, without hurry, and you realize, somewhere between the second and third bite, that you cannot remember the last time you ate a meal, without a drawing spread in front of you, without calculations turning quietly in the back of your mind, without that low, persistent hum of unfinished work, pressing gently against your thoughts, even as you chewed. Tonight, there is nothing pressing. The lentils are warm and simple and good. The bread is soft, slightly charred at one edge, exactly the way you like it. The date wine is sweet and faintly cool against your tongue, and you let each sip rest there a moment before swallowing. You eat every bite slowly, deliberately, the way you imagine a person might eat after returning from a very long journey, savoring the ordinary, finding in simple things a kind of richness they did not have before. When you finish, you set the bowl aside and sit quietly for a while with your hands resting loosely in your lap. The lamp flame barely moves. It's small, light, steady, and warm against the canvas walls. Outside, the camp has grown quieter still. Someone, somewhere, a few tents away, begins playing a small hand drum. The rhythm slow and steady, distant enough that it feels less like music and more like a heartbeat, belonging to the whole camp at once. You close your eyes and listen for a while, feeling the warmth of the food settle pleasantly inside you, feeling your shoulders, your jaw, the small muscles around your eyes begin, almost without your noticing, to soften. Drawings. Before you lie down for the night, you find yourself reaching for an old satchel tucked beneath your drafting table, one you have not opened in years. It smells of dust and dried reeds, and the leather has gone stiff with age. Inside are your earliest drawings, the very first sketches you ever made of this tomb, 20 years ago, when you were young and unsure and trying very hard not to show it. The ink has cracked and flaked in places, and when you run your thumb gently along one corner, small dark flecks of it drift down onto the mat like fine sand. The lines themselves are less confident than your later work. A few measurements are crossed out and corrected in a hand that does not look quite like yours anymore. You smile faintly, holding the old papyrus close to the lamplight. You think again of the grass your teacher used to chew while he studied your drawings, and you almost laugh, alone in your tent, remembering how seriously you used to watch that small green stalk disappear between his teeth, as though your whole future depended on it. In a way, you suppose it did. You wonder now whether he would recognize the finished tomb in these rough early sketches. You think perhaps he would not, because the lines match exactly, but because something in the intention was always the same. The careful attention, the refusal to leave anything unconsidered. He taught you that more than any specific measurement or technique. He taught you to care about the work the way you might care about a person. You sit with the old drawings for a while, turning them gently in the lamplight, feeling no urgency to do anything with them now beyond simply remembering. Eventually, you roll them back up, tie them with their faded cord, and set them gently back into the satchel, sliding it once more beneath the table. 20 years of beginnings, you think, folded quietly into 20 years of endings, all of it leading, somehow, to this one warm and unhurried evening, the stars above Egypt. You step outside one more time before sleep finally claims you. The desert night has arrived completely now, and with it, the stars. You have never in your life seen anything as vast as the Egyptian sky on a clear night, far from the lights and noise of the city. It is not simply a sky. It feels, tonight, like something closer to a revelation, thousands upon thousands of lights, dense and brilliant, arching from one horizon to the other in a slow, silver river of their own. You stand with your head tilted back and find, almost without meaning to, the stars you know best, the ones your teacher first pointed out to you decades ago, the ones the priests used to align tombs and temples with the heavens. You check them out of old habit, the automatic calculation rising briefly in your mind before you even notice it happening, and then you stop. You do not need to calculate anything tonight, not tonight, and you realize with a small, quiet kind of wonder, not ever again. You let the old habit go, the way you might finally set down a tool you have carried for so long, your hand forgot. It was heavy, and you simply look. The stars are not instruments tonight. They are only light, ancient, quiet, and entirely indifferent to the small, warm fact of you, standing beneath them, breathing slowly, finished, at rest. You find that you do not mind their indifference at all. There is something deeply comforting in it. The stars do not need you to have built anything. They were here long before the tomb, and they will be here long after it returns to dust. And tonight, they simply shine the way they always have, asking nothing of you in return. You watch them for a long while. They do not move. Or perhaps they move so slowly that it feels, to you, like perfect stillness. The river in the distance. From where you stand, just outside your tent, you can see the Nile far below, a dark ribbon catching faint traces of starlight as it moves slowly through the black plain of the valley. You have always been able to see it from this hill. In 20 years, it has been your quiet, constant companion in the distance, that same patient river, moving through flood and drought and every season in between, with the same unhurried, calm, never in a hurry, never resisting, simply continuing on toward wherever it is that rivers are going. You watch it now for a long while, the way starlight catches its surface in small, scattered points of silver that shift and reform with each slow ripple. You watch the way it bends gently at the valley's far edge before disappearing into darkness, as though it has some quiet destination of its own that it is in absolutely no hurry to reach. You think of the cool water at your feet earlier this evening, the soft sound of it lapping against the reeds, and you let that memory blend. Now, with the wider view of the whole Dar River moving below you, somewhere along its banks, reeds bend gently in the current. Somewhere a fish rises and falls again beneath the surface, unseen. The river does not pause to notice any of it. It simply continues the way it has continued for longer than anyone can remember, moving without effort, moving without anxiety, simply doing tonight what it has always done, and what it will keep doing long after every stone you have ever placed has worn back down into the desert sand from which it came. The city across the water, far beyond the river, almost at the edge of where your eyes can still make sense of distance. You can see the faint glow of the city, small, scattered points of lamplight resting along the dark horizon. And then, faint and irregular, carried across the water on some small shift of the night air, you hear it, the low, distant note of a temple gong struck once, somewhere among those far lights, marking some hour of some ritual you cannot name from here. It fades almost as soon as it arrives, swallowed back into the quiet, and you find yourself waiting, without meaning to, for it to sound again. It does not. One note was enough, apparently, for whatever it was marking. Somewhere beneath that same glow is the house you grew up in, the narrow street where you used to run as a child, long before you ever held a measuring cord or understood what an angle was. You have not thought of that street in years. Tonight, for some reason, it rises gently to the surface of your mind, undemanding, the way an old, familiar sound might rise unbidden when you are nearly asleep. You wonder, idly, what your family would think if they could see the tomb tonight, finished and sealed against the hillside. You imagine, for a moment, walking through those old narrow streets and trying to explain 20 years of your life in a few sentences, and you find, with a small private smile, that you would not know where to begin. Some things, you think, simply cannot be explained. They can only be shown, and even then, only in part. The city's lights flicker faintly in the distance. Too far away now for the gong to sound again. Too far away to feel anything but peaceful. You watch them for a while, feeling no pull toward them tonight, no urgency to return. There will be time for the city again. Tonight belongs entirely to this hill, this tent, this river, these stars. You take one last slow breath of the cool night air, filling your chest completely, and you feel, for the first time all evening, a deep and unmistakable readiness for sleep beginning to settle through your limbs. The drawings can rest. You go back inside and look at your drafting table one final time. You pick up the very last drawing. You made the final cross-section of the burial chamber, the one you drew and redrew 14 times before it was finally right. The lines are precise and clean. The measurements are exact. Each one checked and checked again until you could close your eyes and see the chamber whole. You roll the drawing carefully and tie it with a strip of linen cord. Then set it gently among the others. And then you do something you have not done in 20 years. You clear the table completely. You gather every drawing, every calculation, every note and revision and discarded plan, and you stack them all into one neat, quiet pile beside the table, leaving the cedar surface bare for the first time in 2 decades. You stand and look at the empty table for a long moment in the lamplight, smooth, clear, asking nothing of you. There is no calculation waiting for morning, no measurement left unchecked, no stone left to place. The work no longer belongs to you. It belongs now to time itself. to the centuries that will pass over it, the way the river passes over stones, slow and patient and entirely unhurried. You look at the empty table a little longer, surprised by how beautiful it is in its simplicity, until the flame is only the smallest point of warm amber light, and you lie back gently onto your sleeping mat. The sounds of the camp at night. The camp settles slowly around you as you lie in the soft dark, and you find that you can hear it breathing. The low murmur of two men talking somewhere nearby. Their voices too soft now to make out any words, just the comfortable, winding down rhythm of conversation, easing gently towards silence. The fires outside are burning lower. They are light, fading slowly from orange to a deep, settled red. You can feel the whole camp releasing the day, the way a tired hand finally opens and lets go of something it has been holding too tightly for too long. The desert itself adds its own quiet sounds to the night. The faint sigh of wind moving low across the sand. The occasional soft tick of stone cooling somewhere outside. A light breeze brushes once against the canvas walls of your tent and fades softly away, as though it only meant to check that you were comfortable before moving on. Once, far in the distance, comes the long, low call of a night bird from this very hill across 20 years and never once managed to identify. Somehow tonight, that feels perfectly fine. Some things you think drowsily, without needing to be understood or labeled or explained. The darkness inside your tent is warm and close around you. Your mat feels familiar beneath your back. Long overdue has finally begun to be repaid. The tide of sleep. Your eyes have closed now, though you are still half aware of the tent around you. The lamp's last small glow flickering gently against your closed eyelids. You think of the stars, still turning their slow wheel above the hill outside, and somewhere beneath that same sky, the river keeps moving, dark and silver, bending gently at the valley's edge the way it has every night of your life. And somewhere closer, the camp keeps settling into its own quiet rest, fire by fire, voice by voice, until there is almost nothing left to hear at all. With every breath you take, you feel your own body joining that same slow, unhurried rhythm, the stars turning, the river moving, the camp settling, and you, beneath all of it, sinking a little further into the warmth of your mat, a little further from the day, a little further from 20 years of carrying. You think of the warm stone at the top of the hill, settled now into its final place, and you let that thought sit gently in your mind without examining it, the way you might hold a smooth stone in your palm without needing to turn it over. You think of the corridors beneath it, aligned so carefully with the very stars now turning above you, and that thought too simply rests there, unhurried, asking nothing further of you. You think of the empty drafting table, bare and smooth in the dark, and you feel, somewhere in your chest, the last small knot of 20 years finally come loose. There is nothing left to calculate, and your breathing slows because of it. There is nothing left to check, and your shoulders soften because of it. There is nothing left to carry up that hill ever again. And with that thought, Your whole body seems to grow heavier, softer, looser, sinking by degrees. Into the mat beneath you, the way-warm sand settles slowly under the weight of a body lying down upon it. The stars keep turning, patient and unchanged, far above the tent. The river keeps moving, slow and silver, far below the hill. The camp keeps settling deeper into its embers, and you keep settling deeper into the dark. Each breath a little longer and a little easier than the one before, until breathing itself becomes the only thing left that you are doing at all. The architect sleeps. Your breathing has slowed almost completely now, long and even, each breath drawing you further from waking and further into rest. The last of the tension you carried for 20 years moves through your body. One final time, like a slow wave reaching the shore, and then gently it is gone. You are not afraid of being forgotten. Somewhere, long from now, someone will climb this same hill in sunlight you will never see, and stand where you stood tonight, and look up at stone you placed with your own hands, and they will not know your name, but they will feel something. The quiet weight of 20 years of human patience, pressed carefully into rock by someone who is no longer here to take credit for it. That, you think, drifting now, is more than enough. It is everything a person could ask of a life's work. The lamp has gone out on its own. The tent is dark and still around you. Somewhere outside, the desert stretches on, enormous and quiet, the river moving through it far below, the stars turning their slow wheel above the hill, none of it needing you to watch any longer. Tomorrow, there will be a sunrise you do not have to measure. There will be a hill you do not have to climb with tools in your hands. There will simply be a morning, ordinary and unearned, and entirely your own, waiting quietly on the other side of this sleep. But that is tomorrow's. Tonight belongs only to this, the warm, dark hush of a tent at the edge of the desert, a body finally allowed to rest, and a mind, after 20 years, with nothing left to hold. And so, at last, fully and completely, the architect sleeps.